Hello students, we're just going to have a brief look at what are fractions, just simply, very simply. Well, here's an orange, and this is actually simply a whole orange, and that's all that is. This isn't a fraction, this is one whole. So here we have just one whole orange. Here you go, I'm going to cut this orange straight down the middle. Chop, 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 chop. There it is. And this whole side of the orange, because we've cut it into two pieces, we would call it a half. So the red part of the orange is half an orange. Here's our orange again, but this time we're going to cut it into four pieces. And this number here, this is the clue. This number here, because that's called the denominator. But for now, let's have a look at what happens when we cut the orange into four pieces. Chop, 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 and I'm going to colour in one of those fourths red. There you go, there's my very best colouring in. And that equals 1/4. I've coloured in one of those four, and that equals 1/4. That's a quarter of an orange. Let's look at what happens when I still cut it into four pieces. The orange, there's the denominator, number 4, 4 pieces. But I colour in 3 of those 4, so I eat 3 of those 4 pieces. Yum yum, must have been a hard soccer match. Well, since I've cut it into 4, it was in quarters, but I've eaten 3, or I've coloured in 3, so that means it is 3/4. 3/4 of the orange is coloured in red. Let's have a look at an eighth, and I think you've probably worked out the denominator. There it is, that's the number on the bottom is 8, so that means we're going to chop it into 8 pieces. And to show an eighth, we have to colour in, well, one of those 8 pieces, which is why it's an eighth. You see this number here is the numerator, that's the number on top, that means 1, and the number down the bottom here is 8, so we've coloured in 1/8. We've cut it up 8 times equally, and we've coloured in one of those, or eaten one of those. We can do the same if we want to find 5/8, but this time, of course, we'd colour in 5 pieces of the 8. So I'm going to divide it into 8ths again. There you go. And see if you can work out what you would colour in. I think you probably can. It's the numerator there, isn't it? We're going for 5/8 this time. So there's 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, a little bit over half. If you're extra clever, you've probably noticed that. That's 5/8 of an orange. So fractions are a part of a whole, whether they're whole oranges or whole numbers. Look, here's the number 20. Let's imagine 20 is an orange. If I cut the number 20 straight down the middle, well, I don't get 2 and 0. If I cut it straight down the middle, then, well, half of that's going to equal 10, and the other half will equal 10 as well, because 10 plus 10 equals 20. So 1/2 will equal 10. Because there's 20 as the whole, cut it straight down the middle, you're going to have 10 on one side and 10 on the other, and that equals 20. So a half, this much, equals 10. Sometimes it can help to think of numbers as fruit. You just cut them down the middle or cut them in quarters. Let's have a look at what happens when we cut 20 up into 4 pieces. Chop, 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 chop. Chop, 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 chop. Right, so the number 20 has been cut into 4 pieces. I'll give you a moment to think about what each piece is going to equal. Have a little think. We've cut it into 4 pieces. The 4 pieces have to be exactly the same, and they have to equal 20. tell you the answer. It's 5 and 5 and 5 and 5. So a quarter of 20 equals 5. And just for those of you who have got this and you're absolute experts, that means that 2 quarters of 20 would equal 10. And 3 quarters of 20 would equal 15. And if you're super smart, you'll get that 4 quarters of 20 would equal 20. Alright, but that's a little bit advanced. Let's have a look at 3 quarters of 20. We just did that, didn't we? Gee, I just gave it away. Cut it into quarters again. And we remember that each quarter of 20 equals 5. So if we're colouring our 3 quarters, that's 5 plus 5 plus 5, which equals 15. So 3 quarters of 20 equals 15. Let's have a look. Only a couple more, guys. I like money because money makes fractions and numbers real. So here's 20 cents. If we cut 20 cents down in half, well, you can't really do this, of course, but I think if you know there's 2 of you and you have to divide 20 cents equally, share half each, then you're going to get, well, one of you is going to get 10 cents and the other person is going to get 10 cents. And so half of 20 cents equals 10 cents. Let's look at $2. Let's divide $2 into quarters, right? So just chop it down the middle again and again because we're doing quarters, not halves. So what's a quarter of $2? Well, what 4 numbers, and they've got to be the same, equal up to $2? So we're trying to find out what is 1 quarter of $2. Have a think before I tell you. Well, I think that this part must be 50 cents, this must be 50 cents, this must be 50 cents, and this must be 50 cents because we've divided $2 equally by 4. So 1 quarter of $2 must equal 50 cents. That means that you had a $2 coin and 3 of your friends were there and you wanted to cut that into 4 ways. Give it out equally. That means that each of you would get 50 cents. 1 quarter of $2 equals 50 cents. You can see how the fractions are part of a whole. What about $5? Well, I tell you what, let's divide this one into fifths. Let's have a go at dividing that into fifths. So imagine we divided $5 into equal fifths. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, if you divided $5 into fifths, how much would each of you get? Alright, if you cut $5 up 5 ways, there's your denominator. How much would each of you get? I think you might work out that it's $1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1/5 of $5 equals $1. Okay. Let's try one that's a little bit trickier actually. Why don't we look at this $5 note and try to find 1 quarter of $5. 1 quarter of $5. 1 quarter. Okay. So again, let's just chop this $5, if you will. Don't use scissors, use your brain. Chop it into 4 pieces. And what is 1 quarter of the $5? Which means we've got to find out what is this piece, what is this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece. Now they're going to be exactly the same amount because a quarter is 4 equal amounts of a whole. 1/4 is 4 equal amounts of a whole. So have a think, what is 1/4 of $5? If you and your friends were going to share $5 between you, you and 3 of your friends, how much would each person get? I'll give you a hint, it's 500 cents. Divide 500 cents by 4. Have a think about it. Okay, each person would get $1.25. $1.25, and there I'll just colour in a quarter so you know what the quarter is. There you go. And you can see that the fraction is a part of a whole. So a quarter of $5, a quarter of $5 equals $1.25. $1.25 is the fraction. Thank you very much for listening, guys. See you later. That was a great slide to end on. Oh, that's not the first slide. Sorry, guys. Here's